Hi Mark, how are you doing today?
Really good, Rich. So 90% of what you do as a company is the same as everybody else, but that remaining 10% is unique to you.
How do you enable a sales team go a bit deeper than playbook data?
The story is the strategy.
Where do you see AI having an impact?
AI today has made it easier than ever to start a business. So the ICP is kind of anybody with a pulse or anybody with money. So if someone's willing to buy, then we're willing to sell. That most deals are lost in that first meeting because salespeople go into that meeting with the view of,
Hi Mark, really fantastic to see you again and welcome to the latest episode of Funnel Vision. How are you doing today?
really good, Rich.
Great, well, fantastic. Well, let's get straight into it. So we first met, I reckon, 20 years ago when I was at IBM. You were running, successful IBM business partner. I'm keen to kind of get a little bit more into your journey in terms of how you got to that point and actually what you're doing now. Maybe you could start by just giving a bit of background, like where you started and how you got to the point of setting up a business partner, and then we'll kind of proceed a bit later and more into the up-to-date stuff.
So I was only really good at two things at school. One was English and one was drama.
Right.
And actually, I had dreams of being an actor when I was young.
Okay, yeah.
But my dad told me that I'd become an unemployed bum and I should go into computing because that's where the money is.
Right.
And so I followed his advice and somehow I managed to talk my way at a young age into IBM.
Okay.
And my first job was pretty much doing what AI could do today. And so I was responsible for cleaning up a database, removing full stops, commas, putting capital letters in where they should be. It was pretty mind-numbing work.
Yeah, sounds fun.
And then fast forward through a few stints at companies like Computer Center and Roy & Son Alliance, and I ended up doing my first sales job in a small IBM reseller business, specializing in a product, I'm going to date myself, called Lotus Notes.
Okay, yeah.
And what I noticed when I was going out and speaking with customers is one pattern which kept occurring around basically email inboxes overflowing with big attachments. Therefore, the storage for these things on the kind of IT side was blowing up servers. But nobody in my business seemed to understand that this is a problem that we could theoretically solve. And so I went and talked to IBM and found a product that nobody was really selling and effectively ended up coming out of that company with a co-worker as two really early 20-somethings with a dream of maybe we can sell this to a few people. So that was the start of that business.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to just reverse a tiny bit. Did you ever do any acting?
No, I didn't, mate. It's still a future dream.
Oh, really? Okay. We'll maybe come back to that. So
maybe I'll get spotted on this show.
Yeah. I think we need to get our viewers up for that to happen, to be fair. So maybe this will be the catalyst.
Mate, fingers crossed.
Obviously, you exited that business. When was that? Like
2010, 15 years ago.
Okay. And explain what's happened like the 15 years since and what you're doing now.
Well, actually, leaving that business was pretty much the catalyst moment for everything that I now do today.
Right.
And so even though in that company we were financially successful, we were philosophically broken. So myself and my business partner were 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And as that company grew, we realized that certain people were siding with him and other people were siding with me. And we never sat down as two...
Sorry, people in the business.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we'd never sat down as two young founders and defined what were going to be our non-negotiables. What effectively were we going to hold each other to account for in terms of a decision-making lens?
Mm-hmm.
And that meant as we got to a certain size, actually, the whole thing started to fracture. And so he ended up buying me out of that business. And I ended up going and doing some advisory work as a result in a bunch of other similar sized companies. And what struck me is a lot of these companies were doing exactly the same thing. So my background was the IBM channel.
Mm-hmm.
I went in to advise a lot of IBM consulting and reseller-based companies.
Okay.
And so not only was the business model the same, but actually the product in a lot of cases was the same because they were resellers of the vendor's technology. But when you went and spent time in their offices, those companies couldn't have been more different in terms of how they behaved, how they treated people, how they viewed what was important and not what was important. I kind of felt like the people that really, really understood who they were for, the people that understood that they had a unique, differentiated backstory, the people that had a bigger reason for running their company beyond profit.
Yeah.
And the people that really understood who belonged in their culture and who didn't belong in their culture, they were the ones that were thriving. Now, none of that's to do with the actual product. It's all to do with who you are as a company. And so I came up with this framework that it almost doesn't matter the business that you're in. So airlines get people from A to B, and hotels offer you a bed for the night. So 90% of what you do as a company is the same as everybody else. But that remaining 10% is unique to you. And I've called that 10% your core difference. C for customer, who are you for? O for origin, your backstory, where are you from? R for reason, your raison d'etre.
Yeah.
So basically, why do you exist beyond making money? And E, your ethos, your culture. How do you behave? Those four unique but interrelated attributes form the foundation of who you are as a company. And there isn't another business on the planet that has that unique four combination.
The work that you're doing with companies now is presumably going in and understanding what's at their core, taking the four-letter analogy, helping them work that out and taking it beyond a marketing message. How are you doing that and delivering that kind of as an offering?
A company reaches a certain time in its journey, in its evolution, well, we did in my last business, where you have to stop and pause and reflect on who is this company beyond what are we selling. And if you don't have that lens, as I experience, things start to fracture, things start to go wrong. Sales becomes harder than it should be. Marketing becomes harder than it should be. Getting people aligned and working together is harder than it should be. And so, yeah, predominantly I'm working with growth stage ventures. They normally are about 8 to 80 people in size. They're doing anywhere between $1 million and 10 million in revenue. And effectively what they're asking is, we've got off the runway. We're kind of in flight, but actually now we want to take the next level of growth. And in order to do that, we need to get clear on these four things.
So that's your C or your ICP, I guess, as a lot of people would describe it.
ICP is an interesting one. And fundamentally, I think that one of the biggest mistakes a company can make is not getting clear on that. The challenge that I see in a lot of businesses is they don't want to restrict themselves too much.
Yeah, they want everything.
Right?
Yeah.
So the ICP is kind of anybody with a pulse or anybody with money.
Yeah.
Right? So if someone's willing to buy, then we're willing to sell. The trouble is with that is it makes sales really challenging and it makes marketing really challenging. In a way, who you're for is sitting above sales and marketing. Because if you can tell a compelling, differentiated story that resonates with your ideal buyer, you're going to make sales easier, you're going to make marketing easier.
Yeah. There was some data literally yesterday, actually, that showed that it was 63% of CROs basically had no or little confidence in their ICP definition. And I think it was even higher, had revisited it over the last 2 years. And I think that's just kind of mad, isn't it, really?
Well, a lot of companies, Rich, I think they're defining themselves by the category that they're in or the service that they offer. And so, hey, we're a data and AI business. Or, hey, we're a digital agency. Or, hey, we do SEO services. But none of that tells me whether I'm right for you or what the problem is that you solve for me.
Customers are coming to organizations much later in the buying process, much more prepared with information, etc. They're looking at you and all your competitors, and most people look the same. So is that 10% of differentiation that really does give you a chance to stand out? And is my culture similar to yours? And that's how you're helping companies sort of cement that story. Is that fair?
Stories don't make people like us. They make people like us. A story is the thing that will create resonance and connection and relatability. And actually, particularly for like a growth stage startup, I think it often gets overlooked of the unique experiences that you've been through as a founder that makes you qualified to work with a certain type of customer on a certain type of problem. And when you get clear on that and you tell that story, that's the time when you're going to connect beyond any kind of fact or feature.
Yeah.
You know, we've been telling stories as humans since the dawn of time. Like, humans are wired for story. They remember story. And yet in sales, we often kind of just default to feature and fact and functionality. My widget's faster than your widget. My widget looks better than your widget.
How do you enable a sales team go a bit deeper than just the kind of the base stories or the playbook data?
I think it was Ben Horowitz, the investor, that said the story is the strategy. And so for me, this is not the job of the marketing department.
Yeah.
It's not the job of the sales department. It lands on the shoulders of the founder or the CEO to actually define and continually beat that drum of that narrative. Like, I was at Big Data London not so long ago. And if you've been to Big Data London or any kind of IT-based trade show, you'll see all the stands, right? Big Data London, pretty much every stand, unleash the power of your data.
Okay.
Put your data to work.
Yeah.
Make data your most important asset. As a buyer, how do I walk around that show and actually see that this company is different to this company? When actually you're all just evangelizing the same thing with no provocative, unique point of view.
Yeah.
That's the job of the CEO to actually define that. Like, you look at when Salesforce launched. When Salesforce launched, Benioff didn't just say, hey, my CRM is better than your CRM. He came up with a whole narrative around who the enemy was.
Yeah.
The enemy was on-premise software. His whole thing was around evangelizing the benefits of cloud and basically framing on-prem software as the enemy. So that strategic story had that compelling point of view that literally set Salesforce apart in those early days. And in fact, they carried it on for decades.
If you're a seller, surely you should be demanding a more unique story to tell of your founders. If you're a CEO or founder, I think it's something you probably just need to rethink. Have you kind of got the core story right?
I think there's two ways you can play it. Depending on the size of your business and depending on the sales role that you're adopting within that business. If you're working for an established company where actually there is a lot of gold in the assets that are contained within that business, is where you can use the power of AI. You can pump customer narrative, whether that is case studies that you've already got, transcripts from success stories, whatever it might be. You can pump that into a tool and start to look for patterns. What is the thing that people are really connecting with you for? What is the thing that people are really buying? And as a salesperson in the territory that you've got, perhaps you can come up with your own differentiated story. Like your earlier point around the fact that 60 to 70% of the sales process is complete by the time that a buyer actually interacts with a salesperson. It is your duty today to have a differentiated, compelling, provocative point of view, to ask questions that nobody else is asking. That's what turns you into a high-performing salesperson. If you don't have that, you're kind of a bit like a lame estate agent showing me around a property and telling me that's the lounge or that's the bathroom. No shit. I can work that out for myself.
Do you feel every company needs an enemy? My last company, we kind of did a lot of work where we built up an enemy. I probably won't go into who it was, but there was a lot of
Interestingly,
this
was it a
organization.
competitor?
Yes.
So I think that's the flaw. So any company is going to look at the competition and think, we have to beat them, right? And you'll have, I don't know, comparison, win card, scorecard, all this type of stuff, right? Our features are stronger here and they're less there and all the rest of it. The enemy as a competitor is lazy. And also, it doesn't offer the salesperson the ownable narrative in a sales conversation. So the only thing that you're going to take into that sales conversation is the fact that company B, our competitor, is weak in these areas and we're super strong over here. Compare that. Let's jump category. Jack O'Neill. You know who Jack O'Neill is?
No.
Jack O'Neill started O'Neill Wetsuits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What do you think Jack O'Neill's enemy was?
Quicksilver, was it? Or
No, because the wetsuit hadn't been invented.
Oh, okay. So it's the swimming trunks and the...
No, because you're thinking category. Jack O'Neill's enemy was cold water. Jack O'Neill was a surfer that just wanted to surf longer.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a little tag.
Well, I guess his competitor is do nothing, isn't it? Which is the same.
But I'm not talking competitor. I'm talking enemy.
Alternative. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Right? What is the fight? What are we trying to do for our core audience? Jack O'Neill's customer doesn't go and run track. They're not shooting clay pigeons. They're surfers. Jack designed a product to fight an enemy for people just like him.
Yeah.
Every company has the ability to look into its founding story and think, what are we here for? What are we against? Who's the enemy? What are we fighting for? And when you lose sight of that you become weak and undifferentiated. Let's go back to Big Data London. Put your data to work. Unleash the power of your data. Imagine that your enemy was dirty data. Dirty data that comes in to your enterprise in a now always on interconnected world and screws with your systems.
Yep.
Now imagine that your customer that you serve is in a highly regulated industry. Or the customer that you serve has tons of data feeds coming into their core product on a minute-by-minute basis. So take a Expedia or a lastminute.com, a consumer-facing aggregator. Imagine that your whole narrative was about helping consumer-facing aggregators, like an Expedia, to protect their organization against dirty data.
Yeah.
And your whole thing, you're not saying that company B over here isn't as good as us, a bit like what Benioff did. You're picking an entire thing, which is dirty data, and you're evangelizing the problem that dirty data causes organizations that we want to go and serve.
If you're entering a fairly mature market and you have a niche and you're a kind of a me too, you're not necessarily going to be the beachhead owner of that market. How do you still attack that?
My question would come back to mission and purpose and story. Why your company deserves to exist. Like, I think AI today has made it easier than ever to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also made it harder than ever to stand out. So the idea that an entrepreneur is a hoodie wearing tech bro in flip-flops, that's going the way of floppy disks and CD-ROMs now. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 65. These AI tools can help you get your vision, your product off the ground.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then actually to separate yourself in a democratized world where actually getting to market is quicker than ever, what are people going to buy into, Rich? The founding story of why you're doing what you're doing, the mission that you're on, the cause that you're fighting, the enemy that you're against, that's what's going to humanize your business above and beyond any technology.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the About page is the second most visited page on any website. It's because as humans, we want to understand the story behind the company.
Yeah.
Like you might be able to get somebody to buy from you, but actually you want people to buy into you if actually you want that long-term loyalty and advocacy.
Yeah.
That's the power of a unique, differentiated story.
I think that's a really interesting phrase, actually, in terms of the not buy from you, but buy into you. I think that's a very powerful message. You know, particularly with the majority of the audience being sellers, founders, sales leaders, etc. Where do you see AI having an impact beyond making it easier to start a business, etc.?
I used it the other day. I created a custom GPT, and I'm an avid note taker.
Mm-hmm.
I had like 3,500 iNotes on my phone.
Right. Is this from like meetings or from just everything?
Rich,
everything.
I'm jotting stuff down non-stop.
Okay.
3,500. And do you know what? Some of them might be a shopping list.
Yeah.
Others might be a deep reflection after a great conversation.
Okay.
But for me, I felt like the only way to understand myself better, all the clues are there. And so I created a custom GPT. I uploaded all of those iNotes into that GPT, and I got it to analyze me. I got it to analyze, where do I feel lifted up and where do I feel drained? What's the type of environment where actually I thrive in and where don't I thrive? And it revealed some fascinating insights. So I think from understanding yourself better, right the way through to imagine that you've got a challenging relationship with your boss.
You said it gave some interesting insights. I mean, without getting too personal or anything that you're willing to share that you didn't know about yourself.
Apparently, I'm a catalyst. And so I love igniting ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I love being with people. So my energy is higher with people working on big strategic topics. My energy is lower if I'm spending a lot of time at home, literally working by myself. Now, don't get me wrong, like there's time for both. But yeah, it was a fascinating thing that it summarized 3,000 notes with a view of being a catalyst. During COVID, my business model changed in the fact that obviously in-person workshops, sitting with leadership teams, it all went out the window. And interestingly, even now, 5 years on, I still do a lot less of that. Now, the positive is that it's opened my client base up to be far more international.
Yeah.
So, I'm working with teams in North America, etc. So that's cool. But I think the thing that I am going to lean into is far more in-person delivery.
Yeah.
I'm going to be pushing for that as a result.
And that'll be in-person delivery to help organizations work out the kind of the core to their being and the points of differentiation and how they take that beyond the kind of sales story. Is that kind of your sweet spot and probably what you'll be focusing on the back of that AI?
Yes. I think it's also things like this. So just the idea of going and having a deep conversation with somebody in person, not remotely through the computer, that's a key thing. Yes, I think sitting with leadership teams, like the ethos part, there's nothing more telling than actually going and sitting in a leadership team session in person to help understand how decisions are made within a business.
Yeah. And seeing that dynamic firsthand, you just can't get that, can you, on a Zoom call or, yeah.
What happens when the leader speaks? What happens when someone shares a controversial idea? What happens when somebody speaks up to power? All of these things are giving clues around that ethos, that culture, that decision-making context within an organization. You think of how most cultural definition is done today. Like, you've probably been in plenty of companies that have got values, and then you've probably witnessed behavior within those organizations that fly in the face of those values.
Yeah.
And so values are typically used as the cultural solution because we feel like, oh yeah, we've got a great culture. Here are our values. The interesting thing, in order to come up with those values, we tend to get a group of people together and we ask them to describe the culture, and then we put some words up on the wall. When the leader is in those sessions, which they have to be, I've often witnessed that the culture doesn't allow you to reveal the culture.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is it's not actually safe to speak up in front of that leadership team and describe what it's actually like around there. And so what you end up with is almost organizational self-deception. We're this, when in fact we're that.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, going back to ICP or core customer, it's paramount for me to work with the right founder or CEO. So somebody that just wants a box ticking exercise to say, hey, we haven't got any values. Sampson, will you come in and help us create some values?
Yeah.
It's not the work for me.
Okay.
Because I'm actually just going to reveal uncomfortable truths for them. I want to work with people that, as their business is scaling, are looking around that business and go, that doesn't feel very us. That doesn't feel very us. That person isn't very us, but they have no idea what us is.
Yeah.
So they're witnessing behavior that they feel uncomfortable about, but they have no set of non-negotiables or a code of conduct that actually defines what it means to be us around here. So somebody that actually is experiencing the fracture as they scale and is open-minded enough to understand that part of the problem could be them.
Okay. And why is this topic so important to you?
Two parts in my backstory. One, the one I shared earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at the strength of my last business, we fundamentally knew who our core customer was. We had that completely dialed in. The origin story, to a degree, was dialed in. It was the fact that we'd spotted this shift in email habits, and that actually we were two young guys that wanted our customers to help overcome that. I don't think the purpose for the business was particularly crisp. Mm-hmm. We were very, very young, and actually it was more about just let's start this and see what happens.
Yeah.
But more than anything, it was the cultural element that broke it. We never defined between the two of us who our company was beyond what it sold. And so the interest in the cultural element completely stems from there. And then coupled with that, I watched my dad when I was younger be so into his work and the people that he worked with that he didn't want to take a holiday. And then he got offered a promotion to move to a sister site about 200 miles away. And we all moved as a family, and I was about 14 at the time.
Okay.
And I witnessed him as a person that didn't want to take a holiday to not want to go in at all. Interestingly, the work was identical. The only difference was the environment in which he did the work.
Right.
So that sat with me as a visceral experience as a young kid. And I think it's kind of stayed with me into starting and growing my own business to now helping leaders shine a light on, like, environment is going to dictate performance. If your salespeople feel downtrodden, low, not motivated, not focused, not driven, they aren't going to perform, Rich. Mm. So actually, even just at the micro scale, the cultural DNA of your sales team in order to drive performance really does matter. And then flip that the other way, that in a remote world, your sales team are almost now the front of house in the fact that people aren't turning up to your office. A lot of sales interactions happen through the screen.
Yeah.
And so if your sales team is pushy, aggressive, impatient, focused on them, not focused on the prospect, that cultural DNA of your sales team is determining how your prospect feels about you and even whether that deal properly progresses. Mm. I'm reading a great book at the moment by a guy named Lee Soles, and it's called The First Meeting Differentiator.
Okay, yeah.
And he basically is preaching the importance that most deals are lost in that first meeting because salespeople go into that meeting with the view of, is this going to be a good use of my time? His view is that you should be going into that meeting with the pure objective of ensuring that it's a phenomenal use of your prospect's time.
Yeah.
And so he urges salespeople to start meetings with the question that in order for this to be a valuable use of your time today, what do you want to ensure that we cover?
Right. That's interesting because I use that on all the coaching discussions that I do.
So often we go and have a conversation with what Soles calls a decision influencer. They might not be the person that signs the check because enterprise B2B is complex.
Yeah.
It has lots of different stakeholders. But actually, ensuring that they feel seen and heard and valued and recognized is the only way that you progress that deal.
Yeah, 100%. Mark, I'm going to have to bring things to a little bit of a close. I'm going to ask you one last question. I think I might know where this may go anyway, but if you had like one tip for every seller or leader that's listening to this conversation, what would that be?
I feel like the biggest mistake that companies make is making what they offer the center of everything rather than who they offer it to. So it's not about the car, it's not about the software, it's not about the makeup. It's about who drives the car, who uses the software and who wears the makeup. Like, it's not the sword that slays the dragon and rescues the princess. It's the knight. They might use the sword, but it's the knight that carries out the action. If you want to connect at a human level with your buyer, with your audience, if you want your marketing to land, if you want your sales story to land, don't focus on the glasses. Focus on the person that wears the glasses.
Yeah, the impact on the person.
Who are they? What are they going through? What's their struggle? What are their hopes, dreams, and ambitions? What's getting in their way of those hopes, dreams, and ambitions? That's your job.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time. It's been
pleasure.
very deep, wide-ranging conversation that I've really enjoyed. We've gone a little bit off-piste in terms of some of the normal sort of topics we cover on the Funnel Vision podcast, but I think it's hopefully going to be very interesting for the people listening, and we'd love to get your feedback. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for inviting me on.